The human frontier. The vast expanse of space stretched out before Commander Sarah Chen as she gazed through the reinforced viewport of Orion's outpost. The station hung in the inky blackness like a jewel, its gleaming metal structure a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Situated at the very edge of explored space, Orion's outpost served as humanity's farthest reach into the unknown. Sarah's dark eyes reflected the distant starlight as she contemplated the magnitude of their mission. For 5 years, the outpost had been pushing the boundaries of human knowledge, conducting research on everything from astrophysics to xenobiology. But more than that, it stood as a symbol of hope, a beacon of human perseverance in the face of cosmic indifference. The soft hum of the station's life support systems provided a comforting background noise as Sarah made her way through the curved corridors. Crew members nodded respectfully as she passed, each focused on their vital roles in keeping the outpost running smoothly. The air tingled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension, a feeling that had permeated the station ever since the long-range sensors had picked up an anomaly 3 days ago. Sarah entered the bustling command center, her presence immediately noticed by her second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Akira Tanaka. The young officer's usually calm demeanor was tinged with nervous energy as he approached her with a data pad in hand. "Commander," Akira said, his voice low and urgent, "we've got confirmation. The anomaly is definitely not natural in origin. Well, you should see for yourself." Sarah took the pad, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the data. The readings were unlike anything they had encountered before, a massive object moving at speeds that defied their current understanding of physics. Her mind raced with the implications. "Have you informed Earth Command?" she asked, her tone measured despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Akira nodded. "Yes, ma'am. We sent the data packet through the quantum relay an hour ago, but given our position, it'll be at least 72 hours before we receive a response," Sarah finished, a frown creasing her brow. They were truly on their own out here, a fact that had never felt more daunting than at this moment. The command center fell silent as Sarah walked to the main holographic display. With a few quick gestures, she brought up a 3D representation of their sector of space. The anomaly glowed an ominous red, its trajectory a clear line heading directly for Orion's outpost. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah addressed her crew, her voice steady and determined, "it appears we may be on the brink of first contact. I don't need to remind you of the gravity of this situation. We are the face of humanity out here, and our actions in the coming hours may well shape the course of our species' future." A ripple of murmurs swept through the room, a mixture of excitement and trepidation palpable in the air. Sarah continued, her words carefully chosen to inspire confidence. "We've trained for this. We've prepared for this. Each and every one of you was chosen for this mission because you represent the best humanity has to offer. Whatever comes next, I know we'll face it together, with courage and integrity." As if on cue, a shrill alarm cut through the air. All eyes turned to the sensor station, where a young ensign's fingers flew across her console. "Commander," the ensign called out, her voice wavering slightly. "The anomaly. It's decelerating rapidly. At current speeds, it will enter our system in less than an hour." Sarah's mind raced through protocols and contingencies. They had drills for first contact scenarios, but the reality of the situation was far more daunting than any simulation. "Akira, initiate first contact protocols. I want all non-essential personnel in their quarters and our defense systems on standby. Not active, but ready." She turned to her communications officer. "Ensign Rivera, prepare a wideband transmission in all known languages and mathematical sequences. Let's make sure our visitors know we're here and ready to talk." As the crew sprang into action, Sarah felt a mix of emotions swirling within her. Fear, certainly. They were vastly outmatched if this turned out to be hostile. But there was also an undeniable thrill of discovery, a sense that they were standing on the precipice of a new era for humanity. The next 45 minutes passed in a blur of activity. Sarah pored over the incoming data, trying to glean any information she could about their potential visitors. The object, no, the ship, for it was clearly artificial, was massive, easily dwarfing anything in Earth's fleet. Its design was alien in every sense of the word, all sweeping curves and iridescent materials that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "Commander," Akira's voice cut through her concentration. "They're here." Sarah looked up at the main viewport, her breath catching in her throat. The alien vessel hung in space before them, a behemoth that made Orion's outpost look like a toy in comparison. Its surface shimmered with an otherworldly energy, patterns of light dancing across its hull in mesmerizing sequences. "Are they responding to our transmissions?" Sarah asked, her eyes never leaving the incredible sight before her. Rivera shook his head. "No, ma'am. No response on any channel." The tension in the room ratcheted up a notch. Sarah was about to order another attempt at communication when a blinding light filled the command center. Instinctively, she threw her arm up to shield her eyes. When the light faded, she lowered her arm and gasped. Standing, or rather, floating, in the center of the room was a being unlike anything Sarah had ever seen or imagined. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, but its body seemed to be composed of swirling energy, with tendrils of light extending outward like a living aurora. Where a face should have been, there was only a pulsing orb of radiance. The creature's voice resonated directly in Sarah's mind, a symphony of thoughts and emotions that threatened to overwhelm her senses. "We are the Zarkoth. We have come to judge." Sarah swallowed hard, acutely aware that the fate of humanity might well rest on her next words. She stepped forward, her voice strong despite the trembling in her legs. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of Orion's outpost. On behalf of the human race, I welcome you. We come in peace and with an open mind, eager to learn and share knowledge." The being's light pulsed, and Sarah felt a wave of something. Curiosity, amusement, disdain. It was impossible to tell. "Your species is young, reckless. You spread through the stars without understanding the consequences of your actions." Sarah's heart raced. This was not the friendly exchange she had hoped for. "We are still learning, it's true," she admitted. "But we are eager to understand. If we have trespassed or offended, it was not our intent. We seek only to explore and grow." The Zarkoth's form shimmered, its tendrils of light reaching out to touch various consoles and screens around the room. Information flashed by faster than the human eye could follow. "We have observed your kind. Your history is one of violence and destruction. You are a danger to yourselves and to the delicate balance of the cosmos." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The implications of the being's words were clear and terrifying. She took a deep breath, knowing her response could determine the future of her entire species. "It's true that our past is not without its dark chapters," she began, choosing her words carefully. "But we learn from our mistakes. We strive to be better. Our presence here, at the edge of known space, is driven by a desire to understand, to connect, to become part of something greater than ourselves." She gestured around the command center, where her crew stood frozen in a mixture of awe and fear. "Look at us. We are a diverse group, from different cultures and backgrounds, working together in harmony. We've overcome our differences to reach for the stars. Surely that counts for something." The Zarkoth was silent for a long moment, its light pulsing slowly. When it spoke again, the weight of eons seemed to resonate in its thoughts. "Your words are intriguing. But words are not enough. You will be tested, Commander Sarah Chen. You and your outpost. The fate of your species hangs in the balance." Before Sarah could respond, the being vanished in another flash of light. The oppressive silence that followed was broken by the blaring of alarms. "Multiple energy signatures detected," Akira shouted. They're everywhere." Sarah rushed to the viewport, her heart pounding. The space around Orion's outpost was filled with Zarkoth ships, their sleek forms glinting in the starlight. They had appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the station in a perfect sphere. As Sarah watched, a shimmering barrier sprang into existence, encasing the outpost and cutting them off from the rest of the universe. The siege of Orion's outpost had begun, and with it, the ultimate test of humanity's worth. Sarah squared her shoulders, her mind already racing with plans and strategies. Whatever trials lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain. She and her crew would face them with all the ingenuity, courage, and determination that humanity could muster. The fate of their entire species depended on it. The impending storm. The hours following first contact with the Zarkov passed in a blur of frantic activity aboard Orion's outpost. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the heart of the command center, a pillar of calm amidst the storm of uncertainty that threatened to overwhelm her crew. The massive view screen before her displayed a dizzying array of Zarkov vessels, their alien geometries a constant reminder of the precarious situation they now faced. "Status report," Sarah demanded, her voice cutting through the nervous chatter that filled the room. Lieutenant Commander Akira Tanaka stepped forward, his usually immaculate uniform showing signs of wear after hours of nonstop work. "The energy barrier is still in place, Commander. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered. Our sensors can't penetrate it, and all attempts at communication have failed." Sarah nodded, her mind racing through potential scenarios. "And our systems? Life support is stable, and we have enough supplies to last several months," Akira replied. "But our power systems are showing strange fluctuations. Dr. Emerson from engineering thinks the barrier might be interfering with our reactor somehow." As if on cue, the lights in the command center flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness before sputtering back to life. Sarah frowned, the implications of this development adding another layer of complexity to their already dire situation. "Get Emerson up here," she ordered. "I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." As Akira hurried to comply, Sarah turned her attention to the communications station. Ensign Maria Rivera sat hunched over her console, dark circles under her eyes betraying her exhaustion. "Any luck contacting Earth?" Sarah asked, already anticipating the answer. Maria shook her head, frustration evident in her voice. "Nothing, Commander. The barrier seems to be blocking all our transmissions. We're completely cut off." Sarah placed a comforting hand on the young ensign's shoulder. "Keep trying, Maria. We need to let Earth know what's happening out here." As she turned away, Sarah caught sight of her reflection in a nearby console screen. The weight of command had never felt heavier, and for a moment, she allowed herself to feel the full burden of their situation. Hundreds of lives depended on her decisions, and beyond that, the fate of all humanity hung in the balance. The sound of the command center doors sliding open snapped Sarah back to attention. Dr. Yuki Emerson strode in, her wild mane of silver hair a stark contrast to the methodical precision of her movements. The chief engineer's eyes gleamed with a mixture of excitement and trepidation as she approached Sarah. "Commander," Yuki began without preamble, "we've got a serious problem. The energy barrier isn't just containing us, it's draining us. Our reactor output is down 15% and falling." Sarah's brow furrowed. "How long until we lose critical systems?" Yuki's expression turned grim. "At the current rate, we've got maybe 72 hours before life support starts to fail." A hushed silence fell over the command center as the implications of Yuki's words sank in. Sarah felt the weight of every eye upon her, each member of her crew looking to her for guidance, for hope. Taking a deep breath, Sarah steeled herself. This was what she had trained for, what she had prepared for all her life. "All right, people, we've got work to do. Yuki, I want you and your team working around the clock on a way to counteract this energy drain. Akira, coordinate with security. I want a full inventory of every weapon and defensive system we've got. Maria, keep trying to punch through that barrier. If we can't reach Earth, maybe we can at least communicate with the Zarkov." As her crew sprang into action, Sarah felt a small surge of pride. Despite the overwhelming odds, despite the fear that must be gnawing at each of them, they moved with purpose and determination. This, she realized, was humanity at its best, facing the unknown with courage and ingenuity. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. Sarah moved from station to station, offering encouragement, making decisions, and trying to piece together a strategy from the fragments of information they had. It was during a quiet moment, as she stood before the main viewport contemplating the ethereal beauty of the Zarkov ships, that a new complication arose. "Commander." Akira's voice rang out, tension evident in every syllable. "We've got movement." Sarah whirled around, her heart racing. On the main screen, one of the Zarkov vessels was breaking formation, moving closer to the outpost. As they watched, a beam of scintillating energy lanced out from the ship, piercing the barrier and striking the outpost. Alarms blared as the station shuddered under the impact. Sarah grabbed onto a nearby console to steady herself, shouting over the cacophony. "Damage report. Minor hull breach in Section 7. Came the response from the damage control station. "Emergency force fields are holding, but we've lost one of our sensor arrays." Before Sarah could respond, the Zarkov ship fired again. This time, the beam didn't strike the station. Instead, it seemed to merge with the energy barrier, causing it to pulse and shimmer with increased intensity. Power levels dropping rapidly. Yuki called out, her fingers flying over her console. "Whatever they're doing, it's accelerating the energy drain." Sarah's mind raced. This had to be part of the test the Zarkov had mentioned. But what were they looking for? How could humanity prove its worth in the face of such overwhelming technological superiority? As if in answer to her unspoken question, a familiar light began to coalesce in the center of the command center. Sarah tensed, prepared for another encounter with the enigmatic Zarkov representative. But when the light faded, it wasn't the alien being that stood before them. Instead, a holographic projection flickered to life, a three-dimensional star map of the surrounding space. As they watched, pulsing red markers began to appear, spreading outward from Orion's outpost like a virus. "My God," Akira breathed, his eyes wide with realization. "Those are Zarkov ships. They're heading for Earth." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. This wasn't just a test of Orion's outpost, it was a prelude to invasion. The fate of all humanity now rested squarely on their shoulders. As the gravity of the situation settled over the command center, Sarah felt a strange calm descend upon her. The path forward was clear, even if it was fraught with danger. "Listen up," she said, her voice steady and determined. "The Zarkov want to test us. Fine. We'll show them exactly what humanity is capable of. Yuki, forget about countering the energy drain. I want every scrap of power we have redirected to our sensors and communications. We need to find a way through that barrier." "But Commander," Yuki protested, "that'll cut our life support time down to less than 24 hours. Sarah nodded grimly. "I know. But if we don't get a warning to Earth, none of that will matter anyway." She turned to face her crew, taking in their mix of fear and determination. "I won't lie to you. The odds are stacked against us, but throughout history, humanity has faced impossible situations and come out on top. We're resourceful, we're adaptable, and most importantly, we don't give up." Sarah's gaze swept the room, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. "The Zarkov think they know us based on our history, but they don't understand what truly makes us human. It's not our technology or our achievements. It's our spirit, our unwavering determination in the face of adversity." She gestured to the holographic display of the approaching Zarkov fleet. "Right now, we're the only thing standing between Earth and annihilation. I can't promise that we'll all make it through this, but I can promise you this. Our actions here, today, will echo through history. We have a chance to save our entire species, to prove that humanity deserves its place among the stars." As Sarah spoke, she could see the change in her crew. Backs straightened, jaws set with determination. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by something greater, a shared sense of purpose, a burning desire to rise to the challenge before them. So, Sarah concluded, her voice ringing with conviction, let's show the Zarkov what humanity is truly capable of. Let's make every second count. For Earth, for all of humanity, let's do the impossible. A chorus of affirmations filled the command center as the crew of Orion's outpost threw themselves into their tasks with renewed vigor. Sarah turned back to the viewport, her eyes fixed on the shimmering barrier that separated them from the vastness of space. The storm was no longer impending. It had arrived in full force. But as Sarah watched her crew work, saw the determination in their eyes and the strength of their spirit, she felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever trials lay ahead, whatever impossible challenges the Zarkov might throw at them, she knew one thing for certain. Humanity would face them head-on, with all the courage, ingenuity, and sheer stubborn determination that had carried their species from the caves of Earth to the stars themselves. The siege of Orion's outpost was more than a test. It was humanity's defining moment, and Sarah Chen was determined to make it count. The siege begins. The gentle hum of Orion's outpost systems had taken on a more ominous tone as the hours ticked by. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the heart of the command center, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed their dwindling power reserves. The Zarkov energy barrier continued its relentless drain, pushing the station's systems to their limits. 18 hours, Dr. Yukai Emerson announced, her voice tight with tension. That's how long we have before life support fails completely. Sarah nodded, her mind racing through possibilities. What about the emergency generators? Yuki shook her head, already factored in. Whatever this barrier is, it's not just draining our main reactor, it's sapping every power source we have. A heavy silence fell over the command center. The weight of their situation pressed down on every member of the crew, the reality of their mortality stark in the face of such overwhelming alien technology. But Sarah refused to let despair take hold. All right, people, we knew this wouldn't be easy, but every second we keep fighting is another second we give Earth to prepare. Yuki, what's the status on our attempts to penetrate the barrier? Before Yuki could respond, a violent tremor shook the station. Alarms blared as the lights flickered, plunging the command center into momentary darkness before emergency power kicked in. Multiple impacts detected. Lieutenant Commander Akira Tanaka shouted over the din. The Zarkov ships are firing on us. Sarah's heart raced as she steadied herself against a console. Damage report. Hull breaches in sections 3, 7, and 12. Came the response from the damage control station. Emergency force fields are holding, but barely. We've lost another 2 sensor arrays and one of our communication dishes. As if to punctuate the dire news, another volley of energy beams lanced out from the Zarkov ships, battering against Orion's outpost's weakening defenses. Return fire, Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. All available weapons, focus on the nearest ship. The station's defense systems sprang to life, a barrage of missiles and energy weapons streaming out towards the closest Zarkov vessel. For a moment, hope surged through the command center as the attack struck home. But that hope was short-lived. The Zarkov shields flickered briefly, then stabilized, showing no signs of damage. No effect, Akira reported, frustration evident in his voice. Their shields are beyond anything we've ever encountered. Sarah's mind raced, searching for a solution. They couldn't match the Zarkov in firepower. That much was clear. But there had to be another way, something they were missing. Wait, she said, an idea forming. Yuki, you said the barrier is draining all our power sources, right? What if we could use that to our advantage? Yuki's eyes widened as she caught on to Sarah's train of thought. You mean overload it? Sarah nodded, a grim smile forming on her face. Exactly. If we can't break through it, maybe we can short it out. Divert all power to a single point, including from life support if we have to. Hit it with everything we've got." "But, Commander," Akira interjected, "that could kill us all. We'd be sacrificing our own lives on a gamble." Sarah met his gaze, her resolve unwavering. "We're dead anyway if we do nothing. At least this way, we go out fighting. And if it works..." She let the implication hang in the air. If it worked, they might just save Earth. The command center fell silent as the crew weighed their options. Then, one by one, they nodded their agreement. The die was cast. "All right," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. "Yuki, coordinate with engineering. I want every scrap of power we can muster directed to our main deflector dish. Akira, ready our remaining weapons. The moment that barrier drops, I want to hit them with everything we've got." As her crew sprang into action, Sarah felt a surge of pride. In the face of certain death, they stood united, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of their species. The next few minutes were a flurry of activity. Systems were rerouted, power conduits overloaded, and weapons primed. All the while, the Zarkov continued their relentless assault, each impact weakening the station's structural integrity. "We're ready, Commander," Yuki announced, her fingers poised over the final command. "On your order." Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what might be her final act as commander of Orion's outpost. "Do it." With a nod, Yuki initiated the sequence. The lights throughout the station dimmed as every available joule of energy was channeled into the main deflector dish. A high-pitched whine filled the air, growing in intensity as the power built to unprecedented levels. On the main view screen, they watched as a blinding beam of energy erupted from the station, striking the barrier head-on. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly at first, but with increasing speed, cracks began to appear in the shimmering field. "It's working," Akira shouted, his voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and triumph. But their victory was short-lived. As the barrier began to collapse, the Zarkov ships moved into action. Beams of energy lanced out, not at the station this time, but at the very point where the barrier was failing. "No," Sarah cried, realizing too late the aliens' intention. The Zarkov weren't trying to stop them. They were helping. With a final, spectacular burst of light, the barrier shattered. The sudden release of energy sent a shockwave rippling through space, rocking the station violently. As the crew of Orion's outpost struggled to regain their footing, a new light filled the command center. Sarah looked up, her heart pounding, to see the ethereal form of the Zarkov representative materializing before them. Impressive, the aliens' thoughts resonated in their minds. "You have demonstrated resourcefulness and self-sacrifice. But the test is not over." Before Sarah could respond, the view screen flickered to life, showing a sight that made her blood run cold. The Zarkov fleet was on the move, but they weren't heading for Earth. Instead, they were converging on a nearby star system, one that Sarah knew all too well. "That's Epsilon Indi," she breathed, horror dawning on her face. "There's a human colony there. Over 10,000 people." "Yes," the Zarkov confirmed. "Your next test begins now. Save them if you can." With that, the alien vanished, leaving the battered crew of Orion's outpost to face their next impossible challenge. Sarah's mind raced. Their station was crippled, their resources depleted. The colony at Epsilon Indi was light years away, far beyond their ability to reach in time. But as she looked around at her crew, saw the determination in their eyes, she knew they couldn't give up. "All right, people," she said, her voice filled with renewed purpose. "We've got 10,000 lives to save and a hostile alien fleet to outsmart. Let's get to work." As the crew of Orion's outpost threw themselves into their seemingly impossible task, Sarah couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They had overcome one impossible challenge already. Perhaps, with human ingenuity and determination, they could do it again. The siege of Orion's outpost had entered a new phase, And with it, the true test of humanity's worth had begun. Whatever trials lay ahead, Sarah knew one thing for certain. They would face them head-on, with all the courage and creativity that had defined their species since the dawn of time. The fate of Epsilon Indi, and perhaps all of humanity, now rested in their hands, and Commander Sarah Chen was determined not to let them down. Against all odds. The command center of Orion's outpost buzzed with frantic activity as Commander Sarah Chen and her crew raced against time. The holographic display at the center of the room showed two critical pieces of information: the Zarkov fleet's inexorable advance towards Epsilon Indi, and the colony's population count, 10,742 souls whose lives now hung in the balance. "Status report," Sarah demanded, her voice tight with tension. Lieutenant Commander Akira Tanaka stepped forward, his usual composure strained. "It's not good, Commander. Our long-range communications are still down. We can't warn the colony or call for help from Earth. Our engines are operational, but at our top speed, we'd never reach Epsilon Indi before the Zarkov." Dr. Yuki Emerson chimed in, her silver hair disheveled from hours of nonstop work. "Power levels are stabilizing, but we're running on fumes. Life support is back online, but we've lost 40% of our defensive capabilities and 60% of our offensive systems." Sarah absorbed the information, her mind racing through possibilities. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and rapidly running out of options. But giving up wasn't in her nature, nor in the nature of any human who had ever reached for the stars. "All right," she said, her voice filled with determination. "We can't fight them head-on, and we can't outrun them. So we need to outthink them. Yuki, what do we know about Zarkov technology that we could potentially exploit?" Yuki's brow furrowed in concentration. "Not much, but they're energy weapons. They operate on a frequency we've never encountered before. It's why our shields were so ineffective against them." A spark of an idea began to form in Sarah's mind. Could we use that somehow? Tune our own systems to that frequency? Yuki's eyes widened as she caught on to Sarah's train of thought. "Maybe, yes. If we could modulate our deflector dish to match their weapon frequency, we might be able to create a feedback loop. It wouldn't destroy their ships, but it could disrupt their systems temporarily." "Do it," Sarah ordered. "Akira, I want you to work with Yuki. Figure out a way to boost the range of our deflector dish. If we can't get to Epsilon Indi before the Zarkov, maybe we can still affect the battle from here." As her officers hurried to comply, Sarah turned to Ensign Maria Rivera at the communications station. "Maria, keep trying to punch through the interference. Use every trick in the book. We need to warn that colony." The hours that followed were a blur of activity. The crew of Orion's outpost worked tirelessly, pushing themselves and their equipment to the absolute limit. Sleep was forgotten, meals were skipped, and every ounce of human ingenuity was poured into their desperate plan. It was during a rare moment of quiet that a new complication arose. Ensign Rivera's console erupted in a cacophony of alarms, drawing all eyes in the command center. "Commander," Maria called out, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and dread. "I'm picking up a transmission from the Zarkov fleet." Sarah's heart raced as she moved to Maria's station. "Put it through." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the ethereal form of the Zarkov representative. Its body of swirling energy seemed to pulse with an almost smug satisfaction. "Your efforts are admirable, but futile." The aliens' thoughts resonated in their minds. "The colony at Epsilon Indi will fall. This is the nature of the universe. The strong survive, the weak perish. Prove your strength or accept your extinction." Sarah's jaw clenched, anger burning in her chest. "That's not who we are," she replied, her voice steady despite her fury. "Humanity doesn't measure strength by our ability to destroy. We measure it by our ability to protect, to nurture, to grow. And we will not stand by while you threaten innocent lives." The Zarkov's form shimmered, its tendrils of light twisting in what might have been amusement. Bold words, But words alone will not save your people. You have 6 of your Earth hours before we reach the colony. Prove your worth, Commander Sarah Chen, or watch as we cleanse this sector of your kind." With that, the transmission cut off, leaving the crew of Orion's outpost in stunned silence. Sarah took a deep breath, steadying herself. When she spoke, her voice was filled with iron determination. "You heard the alien. 6 hours to save 10,000 lives. Let's make every second count." The command center erupted into renewed activity. Yuki and Akira redoubled their efforts on the deflector dish modifications, while Maria continued her relentless attempts to break through the communication interference. As the hours ticked by, progress was made in fits and starts. The deflector dish was successfully modulated to the Zarkoth weapon frequency, but its range was still woefully short of reaching Epsilon Indi. Communications remained stubbornly silent, despite Maria's increasingly creative attempts to punch through. With just 2 hours remaining, Sarah found herself standing before the main viewport, gazing out at the stars. The weight of 10,000 lives pressed down on her shoulders, threatening to crush her spirit. But as she stood there, a memory surfaced, a quote from an old Earth book she had read as a child. "The difference between the impossible and the possible lies in a person's determination," she murmured to herself. As if triggered by her words, an alert sounded from Yuki's station. "Commander," the engineer called out, excitement evident in her voice. "I think we've got something." Sarah hurried over, hope surging in her chest. "What is it?" Yuki's fingers flew over her console as she explained. "We've been approaching this all wrong. We can't extend the range of our deflector dish enough to reach Epsilon Indi directly. But what if we didn't have to?" She brought up a diagram on her screen. "Look here. There's a Class 9 pulsar about halfway between us and Epsilon Indi. If we can time it right, we might be able to use the pulsar's electromagnetic pulses to amplify and relay our deflector signal." Sarah's mind raced as she grasped the implications. "Like a cosmic signal booster," she breathed. "Yuki, you're a genius." But Akira, ever the voice of caution, spoke up. "It's brilliant, but incredibly risky. The timing would have to be perfect. If we're off by even a fraction of a second, we'll be sending an amplified burst of energy right into the colony we're trying to save." Sarah finished grimly. She looked around at her crew, seeing the mix of hope and fear on their faces. "But it's the only chance we've got. Yuki, Akira, make it happen. Maria, keep trying to warn the colony. If we can get through to them, they might be able to help coordinate the timing from their end." As her crew threw themselves into their tasks with renewed vigor, Sarah returned to the viewport. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter now, as if offering their silent encouragement. "Hold on, Epsilon Indi," she whispered. "Help is coming." The final hour ticked away in a frenzy of calculations, adjustments, and last-minute preparations. With just minutes to spare, everything was in place. All that remained was to execute their desperate plan and hope that human ingenuity would once again prevail against impossible odds. Sarah took her place at the command station, her heart pounding, but her voice steady as she gave the order that would determine the fate of 10,000 souls. "All stations, stand by. Epsilon Indi is counting on us. Let's show the Zarkoth what humanity is really made of. Initiate Operation Pulsar in 3, 2, 1. Now." As the deflector dish powered up, its energy lancing out towards the distant pulsar, Sarah Chen and the crew of Orion's outpost held their breath. In that moment, the hopes of an entire species rested on a single desperate gambit. The siege of Orion's outpost had pushed humanity to its limits. Now they would learn if those limits were enough to save them from extinction. Struck the pulsar at the precise moment of its electromagnetic pulse. For a heart-stopping second, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a wave gathering strength, a massive surge of energy erupted from the pulsar, hurtling towards Epsilon Indi at near-light speed. "Energy wave on target," Yuki shouted, her fingers flying over her console. It'll reach the Zarkov fleet in 30 seconds. Sarah's heart raced. They had done all they could. Now it was up to fate and the laws of physics to determine the outcome. As the seconds ticked by, a new alarm blared from Maria's communication station. "Commander," the young ensign called out, her voice filled with excitement. "I'm receiving a transmission from Epsilon Indy." "Put it through," Sarah ordered, hope surging in her chest. The view screen flickered, revealing the face of a middle-aged man, his expression a mixture of fear and determination. "This is Governor Chen of Epsilon Indy Colony. We're picking up massive energy readings approaching our system. What's happening?" Sarah quickly explained their desperate plan, watching as understanding dawned on the governor's face. "We need you to be ready," she concluded. "When that energy wave hits the Zarkov fleet, there's a chance their systems will be temporarily disrupted. That's your window to evacuate as many people as possible." The governor nodded grimly. "Understood, Commander. We'll be ready. And thank you. Whatever happens, know that your efforts won't be forgotten." As the transmission cut off, all eyes turned back to the main display. The energy wave was now visible, a roiling tsunami of electromagnetic force bearing down on the unsuspecting Zarkov fleet. "Impact in 3, 2, 1. Akira counted down. The view screen erupted in a dazzling light show as the energy wave slammed into the Zarkov ships. For several agonizing seconds, it was impossible to tell what effect, if any, their desperate gambit had achieved. Then, like music to their ears, Yuki's voice rang out. "Zarkov ships are showing massive power fluctuations. Their shields are down, weapons offline." A cheer went up from the crew, but Sarah knew they couldn't celebrate yet. "Maria, get me the colony." The transmission from Epsilon Indy crackled to life once more, this time showing scenes of organized chaos as colonists rushed towards evacuation ships. "The Zarkov fleet is disabled," Governor Chen reported, his voice trained but triumphant. "We're evacuating now, but we don't have enough ships for everyone." Sarah's mind raced. They had bought the colony time, but it wasn't enough. They needed a miracle. As if in answer to her unspoken prayer, a new voice cut through the command center. "This is Admiral Zhao of the Earth Defense Fleet. We're picking up massive disturbances in the Epsilon Indy system. What's your status, Orion's outpost?" Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. "Admiral, we've engaged a hostile alien force threatening the Epsilon Indy colony. Their fleet is temporarily disabled, but the colonists need immediate evacuation." "Understood, Commander," Admiral Zhao replied, his tone grim but determined. "We've been tracking unusual energy signatures in your sector for days. We're 3 hours out at maximum warp. Hold the line, reinforcements are coming." As the transmission cut off, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They weren't alone anymore. Earth had heard their silent call for help. The next 3 hours were a blur of activity. The crew of Orion's outpost worked tirelessly, coordinating with the Epsilon Indy colonists to maximize their evacuation efforts while monitoring the gradually recovering Zarkov fleet. Just as the alien ships began to show signs of restored power, a new alert sounded. "Multiple warp signatures detected," Akira announced, his voice filled with relief. "It's the Earth fleet." The view screen lit up with the most beautiful sights Sarah had ever seen. Dozens of Earth's finest warships dropping out of warp, their weapons charged and ready. Admiral Zhou's voice crackled over the comms once more. "Orion's outpost, Epsilon Indy. Help has arrived. All civilian ships, fall back behind our line. Zarkov vessels, this is your only warning. Stand down or be destroyed." For a tense moment, it seemed as though the Zarkov might choose to fight. Then, to everyone's surprise, the alien ships began to retreat, their sleek forms disappearing into the depths of space. As the realization of their victory sank in, the command center erupted in cheers and tears of joy. Sarah found herself enveloped in a group hug. the emotions of the past days finally breaking through her commander's facade. But their celebration was cut short by a familiar shimmer of light. The Zarkoth representative materialized in the center of the command center, its form somehow seeming less imposing than before. "You have surprised us, humans," its thoughts echoed in their minds. "We sought to test your worth, to determine if you deserved a place among the stars. We expected you to fight, to struggle against impossible odds. But we did not expect this." The being's form rippled, as if in contemplation. "You faced extinction not with violence, but with ingenuity. You risked everything not for glory or conquest, but to save lives. Perhaps we have misjudged your species." Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the alien. "We are not perfect. Our history is filled with conflict and mistakes. But we learn, we grow, and we will always strive to be better than we were yesterday." The Zarkoth's light pulsed in what might have been agreement. "Your trial is over, Commander Sarah Chen. You have proven humanity's worth, not through strength of arms, but through strength of spirit. We will be watching your progress with great interest." With that, the being vanished, leaving behind a crew both exhausted and exhilarated. In the days that followed, as the full story of Orion's outposts stand against the Zarkoth spread, humanity found itself changed. The knowledge that they were not alone in the universe, and that they had faced their first true cosmic test and emerged victorious, sparked a new era of unity and purpose. Research into the Zarkoth's advanced technology led to breakthroughs in energy production and space travel. The spirit of cooperation that had saved Epsilon Indi became a model for solving global challenges back on Earth. And at the heart of it all stood the crew of Orion's outpost, ordinary men and women who, when faced with impossible odds, had exemplified the very best of what humanity could be. As Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly rebuilt and expanded Orion's outpost, gazing out at the stars that no longer seemed quite so distant, she felt a profound sense of pride and hope. They had been tested, and they had proven their worth. Whatever challenges the universe might throw at them next, she knew that humanity would face them together, with courage, creativity, and an unbreakable spirit. The siege of Orion's outpost was over. Humanity's next great adventure was just beginning.